Hello and welcome back for another episode of my 10th level Paladin. I've actually forgotten the name of my own show a few times. So if you're tuning in, you've tuned into the right show. And today I'm talking with my buddy Jamie Fristrom. I've known Jamie about 8 years now up here in the Seattle area, 10 years. Um, the
Feels
first
like
game,
forever.
yeah, it feels like a while. What's funny is how many people that you and I know through the hobby that we don't know through each other. Guys like Mark
Right.
Now, for instance.
Yes.
And that's just strange. I think the first thing you and I ever played was my game George's Children, I want to say. You played that little Korean girl.
Wow, I don't remember at all, but that's quite possible.
Yeah. Your daughter had made a Korean friend, and she had been over at your house, and you decided you wanted to play a Korean girl in George's Children, if I remember the story correctly.
Yep. That
Yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah.
It's a long
But the
time
first
ago.
person I played with up here was Jay. I played with Jay in a game that I helped play test, and he didn't even know who I was. So.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you were busy. It was the first night we played at Dragon's Lair, and you were busy teaching a game to somebody at the other
Gotcha.
table.
Okay. Yeah.
And Diana and I sat with Jay, and we played Expeditions by Eric Boyd, Expeditions of something. I don't remember the full name. And that's how I don't think Jay's ever liked me because of that very first session. But you and I gamed the next week, and we had a bunch of people, and that was when I really first got to know you. And then we just stuck it out. You, Andy, and Diana and I, we just stuck it out for the longest time until as we moved from location to location.
Yeah.
So tell me what's been going on with you. We haven't talked in a while, and I'm hogging the spotlight.
Yeah. Well, COVID kind of put an end to the East Side Story Games meetup, so
Yeah.
and it was kind of on its last legs anyway. It felt like,
Yeah.
but after that, I was like, yep, that's a sign. That's a sign that this is done. So.
Yeah.
I have been playing in a couple sessions, a couple regular campaigns. I think there are people you don't like in both those campaigns.
Oh. The idea that there's people that I honestly don't like is sort of funny because I come across as so gruff online. There's just people I would prefer not to game with. They could be people I still like, but I remember there were a few times playing with Jan where I felt she was just bullying us around. And I thought, wow, I really like Jan, but why is she so mean to play with?
Hope she doesn't listen to this and get offended.
Yeah, no.
That's not Jan at all. But
yeah, Jan wouldn't get offended. I think she knows that she comes across as mean sometimes. I don't think she'd be shocked at that. So anyway, do you want to talk about what you do for a living, or do you care if people know or don't know what that is? Because I think that's
sure.
relevant.
Yeah, I've been a computer game maker for over 30 years. My big hit was Spider-Man 2 back 20 years ago, and
Yep.
and then I went indie for a while and made no money for a long time. You probably know how that feels.
Yeah. I've been doing that for 15 years.
And then I threw in the towel, and I work for Mojang now on Minecraft on the Bedrock edition, doing just like hardcore coding stuff. No input into the design at all.
Interesting. But you're leading a team, right?
Yeah. Team, a team that focuses solely on the networking and multiplayer.
So, still one of the most popular video games in the world, right?
Yeah, if not the most popular. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy because I remember when I first heard about it, and this is going back to 2010. I think is the first time I heard about it, maybe 2009. And I didn't know it was a success overnight, and people were making fun of me for, you're in the gaming industry, you never heard of Minecraft?
Yeah, no, and so many times I gotta try this Minecraft thing everybody's talking about, and just not getting into it, not understanding why people found it so much fun. I think I get it now after the deep immersion, but but also don't get why it's the worldwide sensation still. Like I think that goes to something Mark now often talks about, which is like a lot of success is just random. Like what makes that certain mega hit, the Harry Potters and the Minecrafts and the who knows what else, that's ineffable, and in a parallel universe it could have been something totally different.
Fascinatingly, I was watching a video today about Bill Watterson, creator of Calvin and Hobbes, and what the amount of different comics he tried to make before he landed on Calvin and Hobbes. And Calvin was just a background character in one of the strips that he had submitted to United Artists. United Artists, or I forget the name of it now, Associated Artists, the comic strip company that got him into newspapers. And he's one of the few guys that held on to his artistry, right? And he kept making what he wanted to make, and he didn't let it become a commercial success. And there's something there of, what if we hadn't gotten that? What if we hadn't gotten Minecraft in the cultural zeitgeist? What would be in that niche? Who would be sort of the paragon of comic strips or video games right now if it weren't those things?
Yeah.
But anyway, we're here to talk about your favorite character, and I would like to know. Well, I would like to know who it is.
All right, I think my favorite character might have come from a game from before you and I met. It was from a Monster Hearts campaign.
Interesting.
And I was playing the Infernal, and the conceit, and you know me, and I sometimes dabble in RPG design myself, and that I was like tried a long time to make a sort of postmodern superhero game, right?
Right.
One of my first experiences with that was this Monster Hearts game where my conceit was, what? If I was given supernatural powers from a demon, I would totally dress up in a costume and start fighting crime. And so that's what my teenage Monster Hearts character did. He was this geeky comic book nerd, role-playing nerd, kind of like me. Except, he'd been given supernatural powers by a demon. He's the Infernal playbook. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna try fighting crime. And I knew because of the way Monster Hearts worked and because of the way this playbook worked that things were going to go very badly for him, and they did. So he had a whole kind of like redemption arc as the demon is forcing him to go more and more gray area in his superheroing, and then having to claw his way back from there. Really, really great campaign. So I'm halfway through trying to write a novel about it, which I'll probably never finish.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've tried to do that myself. You write a novel about one of your favorite characters. You're the first person to say that on the show, though. How long did the campaign go?
Must have been like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Wow. With Monster Hearts. Yeah,
it was 2 or 3 seasons quote seasons, gameplay seasons of the game. And it's like I forget how, I think we met every other weekend, so it wasn't like maybe a huge number of sessions, but it was significant. A lot of the other players played 2 characters over the course. Gave up on their first character and started another one, but mine was the only one who sort of made it the duration. One of the only ones who made it the duration.
Right. Monster Heart's not one of those games that's easy to go for that length. Did you guys do the high school thing to start it off, or did you try a different approach?
Yep, it was pretty much by the book Monster Hearts, with the kind of like out of the way high school in a podunk town, and creating the seating chart in the beginning to find out all the like political relationships between the kids. And
we tried playing one shots of it, you and I, and I think that never goes anywhere because you need so much time to build up steam with that system. But I think it's one of the few Powered by the Apocalypse that really work. There's so many of them I don't like, and I've been vocal about that in the past. But Monster Hearts, I can't say enough good things about it, and it doesn't push any of my buttons. I don't care for romance stories. I don't care for teenage stories. I don't care for werewolves and that sort of thing. But it gets me. It just gets me on all
Yeah,
cylinders.
I know.
Oh, go ahead.
I think Avery like really kind of, I don't know, found the stuff of story and built rules and mechanics that like really get at, you know, storytelling. Even I think surpassing Apocalypse World. Like I prefer it to Apocalypse World myself.
I've certainly played it more than Apocalypse World. And I have to say that she does nail all of the things that Vincent was doing with relationships, and she uses that part of it. I would need to play more Apocalypse World to make a decision, but it's certainly my favorite of any of the clones. Or the hacks. Are they called hacks?
What are they called? Mods?
Mods, yeah.
Is that a computer game thing?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all of the derivatives of Powered by the Apocalypse, I think 99% of them fail just because somebody's stealing the dice mechanic without understanding what it's for. But Monster Hearts really is that good. Tell us one of your stories, one of the better stories that. Did you even tell us your character's name?
Oh, well, it was Logan, which is straight off of the playbook, actually.
Right.
But it works for me. Like it works for me in hindsight. Like I can imagine that his geekiness like was inherited from his dad. His dad, like being a comic books geek, is like, I'm gonna name my kid Logan, and the mother just like going along with it, like, okay, name your kid Wolverine, whatever. Yeah, it was pretty early on. Just a few sessions in, I think, where we get an idea of the kind of hero he's going to be, because he beats his friend's abusive father to death with a tire iron.
Jiminy.
Like that is him being a hero in his mind, right? At that moment.
How early on in the story is this?
It was quite early. Like he'd gotten his powers. He'd gotten some special equipment from his weird demon benefactor, who he didn't think of was a demon. He was like, yeah, this is some like god or extraterrestrial intelligence or something. I don't know what this is, but superpowers are cool. I'm in. And yeah, and he thinks like, oh, I'm going to help out my friend who's got, who has this abusive dad who, shows up to school with like a black eye, and it's like, and of course that didn't go well. Of course his friend was not in a better place after his abusive father was murdered.
Right. Is this one of those situations where the game master, the MC as it's called in Apocalypse World, has turned the story against you, or your die rolling was turned against you?
It's kind of in the DNA of the playbook, I think, to have the demon like make demands on you and sort of push you in directions you don't want to go, and to ask you to repay your debts in blood. So yeah, I mean, it was the game master who was very good. She was a stellar GM, and she pushed hard. Like she would when things had consequences, she'd make you feel them. This was before I got fairly serious about my triggers. There was one time where my character asked a villain using mind control powers to give up their life of crime. And the GM responded by having that character kill themselves, which now is a trigger for me.
Yeah.
Like that and firearms. It's like I kind of put it out on the table almost every time I play with people before we play. Hey, this is a place I don't like to go. Here's the kind of thing I X card, which is always hard. Like the safety tools we've come up with, I can't think of anything better, but they're still not satisfactory for me.
Yeah. Well, that's a struggle in modern gaming and storytelling, right? Because we all want to be able to have agency and affect the story, and then somebody's going to bring something up It's a lot easier if one game master knows all of your triggers, but it's a lot more difficult for everybody at the table to remember everybody's triggers.
Right. Yeah. And the kind of games we play where everybody has authority, like you kind of have to have that, right? Yeah,
Right.
Everybody has to be aware if there's some sore subjects somebody doesn't want to bring up.
I'll be honest, my most difficult thing to remember when we're gaming is somebody's pronouns. I always screw that up simply because of habit. It has nothing to do with not wanting to respect somebody's space, but it just comes down to, oh crap, right, you said they and I said she. Oh crap, I'm sorry. It happens.
The character or the player or both?
The player. If the player wants me, with the character, I don't know why I'm able to remember it better, but I am. But when somebody says that they themselves need a specific pronoun to address them, I always screw it up, and it's never intentional. I always feel bad afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think that's a space we're playing in when we're doing. And you and I, we've done doing this a long time, where we were gaming with absolute strangers, and every week it's a different rule, it's a different trigger, it's a different observation that you have to sort of protect if you want to respect the other people at the table.
Yeah, no, I've definitely misgendered people before, and yeah, it's awkward, and yeah, and when people like forget about my triggers, like when I first started, like, you know, trying to set these ground rules and people would forget, I would get pissed. It was like, it was you know, how hard can it be? But now that I've so often like blown it myself, I definitely give people a grain of salt and go, I know it's really hard. Like almost all of our fiction has firearms in it. So for me to say like, hey, don't go there, that's like saying don't breathe practically.
Yeah. It's such a part of the cultural zeitgeist. And every time I've screwed it up for you, I feel just awful because I know that you need this and you have very specific reasons and legitimate reasons for needing that observed, and we all walk away feeling bad, I think, when we're not able to do that for people.
Well, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm much better sort of mentally, psychologically healthy wise than I was like back when it was really bad, right? Like
yeah.
You've been with me at times where I didn't even want to look at things, right? Like much better place than I was then, or a much more resistant place, I guess. Yeah. The safety stuff sucks in the way, like I have to kind of micro trigger myself. Like I'm kind of micro triggering myself right now, just having this conversation.
Yeah.
I got to micro trigger myself just to get it out there, so I don't get like triggered worse later. It's really, really awkward, and I wish there was some magical way to make it better. I can see why some people give up story gaming entirely just to avoid the issue, but that's not an option.
No. Yeah, gaming is breathing for us in a lot of ways. So no, I get that. I'm with you, right? Because you and I have talked about PTSD a lot, and I'm not gonna vent your stuff. You're comfortable enough, I think, deciding if you want that aired. But I think you and I have talked about PTSD enough to understand that some of this stuff comes back much later, and you're not always in the best place to accept it. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people are so guarded at the table. And it's the same thing with anxiety and everything else. And maybe 30 years ago, we were just better at lying about it to ourselves. But now we've got a generation of kids who have different observations about it. And you and I just have to be better, right? If we want to make those spaces for people, we got to be more honest and we got to be more observant. And now I'm preaching.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's constant growth, right? Like this is, Microsoft, working at Microsoft is actually making me a better person because there's so much sort of like training around diversity and inclusivity, and the management training is very I don't know how to describe it. It's like so anti-bullying and pro listening and understanding,
right?
I feel like I'm a better person than I was a couple of years ago than when I started, and yeah, one of the things I'm getting out of that is sort of the reminder, like it's a constant growth. We're never perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's just sort of opportunities to improve.
Yeah, and I think I've been working from home for 12 years now, and that sort of anti-socialism has certainly made me less respectful, I think, of those sorts of needs. I wasn't necessarily insensitive to people's stuff. I was one of the first people in the hobby as an art director to say, no, I'm not going to be putting pictures of ladies in their underwear on these game cards. That's ridiculous. It's done. I'm not even going to argue. I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to move forward. And female characters have the same weight in this game. And this was 2000, right? I was saying this, and I was moving forward with art and just not doing that shit anymore.
Nice.
But here I am now. It's 2022. I'm an indoor cat now, and I don't necessarily don't want, that's the wrong phraseology, but I just don't have the patience that I used to have for people's stuff. And I think being online and you have 500 different people screaming about their specific thing, you run out of what the kids call spoons, right? You just don't have enough in you. The tank runs empty pretty quick.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Like I said something, I tweeted something I thought was totally, like I had no idea I was about to step on somebody's trigger, right? And somebody sort of called me on it and said, yeah, that's what white people always say about that, because it's, it perpetuates their superiority over other cultures. And I was like, holy shit. And at first I was like, are you calling me a racist? And then I stepped back and my Microsoft training kicked in, and I was like, okay, this guy probably really is sick of hearing this all the time, right? Like I can do better. I don't have to tell that joke anymore or whatever.
Yeah. I catch myself a lot when I'm about to do a post on Facebook or Twitter. I'll have to write a joke 2 or 3 times before I'll post it, because I'm making sure, am I being a dick towards anybody that I know of in particular with this joke? And I'm used to being spontaneous with that sort of thing and just I made a dumb dick joke last time you and Sabra and Jan and I were hanging around, and I realized I'd probably been drinking too much. That was a stupid joke. It wasn't even funny. And so it's stuff like that I have to walk back, and I can't believe I'm using that term, but I have to walk back from, do I really want to say that online? Do I really want somebody twisting something I really don't mean just for the sake of a joke? And it's just not worth it to me sometimes. Was that a good place to stop?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe.
I mean, it just felt like a nice natural pause.